Good morning, I'm Kenneth Moten.
And I'm Janae Norman. Here are the top 5 things to know this Monday. Number 1, those back-to-back mass shootings.
First, in Dayton, Ohio, police are trying to determine what motivated a gunman to kill 9 people, including his own sister. He was shot and killed less than 30 seconds after opening fire outside a bar.
At a vigil last night, mourners interrupted the governor chanting, "Do something and make a change." Number 2, federal authorities are weighing hate crime charges against a suspect in the El Paso massacre. The 21-year-old is accused of killing 20 people and wounding more than 24 others at a Walmart near the border.
Investigators are treating the attack as a domestic terrorism case. They believe he posted racist anti-immigrant messages online before the attack. On to number 3, a developing story overseas. Growing protests in Hong Kong are raising concern that a fierce crackdown from China may be looming.
The protests and a citywide strike today have brought Hong Kong to a standstill, blocking trains and canceling more than 200 flights. It follows more clashes between police and demonstrators.
Hong Kong's leaders says the protests, which were sparked by a proposed extradition law with China, have pushed the city to a, quote, verge of a very dangerous situation.
And we head to Florida for number 4. 3 people are recovering from shark bites over the weekend.
They include a man who was standing in knee-deep water at New Smyrna Beach when he was bitten on the foot, and the bites were not life-threatening.
And finally, number 5, most parents will tell you nothing is more fun than watching their kids play soccer or t-ball or really any sport.
But a new study from the Aspen Institute finds that on average, kids spend less than 3 years playing sports and are quitting by age 11. The main reason, according to kids and parents, is too much pressure. It's all about winning than actual playing for fun.
So ESPN is working with the Aspen Institute on a new campaign called Don't Retire, Kid. They kicked off with a public service announcement showing a young athlete holding a news conference to talk about his retirement. The campaign will feature well-known stars from all over the sports world, encouraging kids to stick with sports, plus plenty of resources to help parents keep their kids playing,
including lowering the pressure.
So as Kenneth said, a tough way to start the week, but we're going to get through it together. Everything you're feeling at home about this awful news, we are feeling here and have been feeling all weekend. So we will get right to the new details emerging about this weekend's mass shootings in El Paso, Texas and Dayton, Ohio. 29 people killed, dozens more injured. We begin with Meghan in El Paso, Texas. Meghan, good morning.
Good morning, Janae. We're learning more about the victims here this morning. They include a grandmother who raised 7 children, a mother and father who died while protecting their 2-month-old son, and an Army veteran who was also a longtime bus driver in El Paso.
Overnight, communities coming together across El Paso.
Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name.
From a parade of mourners carrying sunflowers to an estimated 1,000 people gathering at this baseball field, all seeking hope and comfort in the wake of tragedy.
Go, go, go! Come on! Hands up, hands up!
It comes after a gunman opened fire at a Walmart in El Paso Saturday, killing 20 people. The massacre unfolding as families packed the store, many of them back to school shopping. Surveillance images obtained by KTSM appear to show the gunman walking through the entrance with a weapon pointed straight ahead, wearing ear protection and tactical glasses. Adriana Gonzalez was shopping with her mother.
This senior citizen lady that I tried to help and I couldn't, and I just told her to move faster and she couldn't move faster, so I left her there. And I needed to get out because the shooter was getting closer and closer. So I was I just told her to get down and hide.
Lita Jabrowski's sister, 25-year-old Jordan Achongo, was killed protecting her 2-month-old son. On Saturday, Lita pleaded for help locating her sister's husband, Andre, the infant's father.
Anybody hears anything, just give us a call.
But overnight, the family getting the heartbreaking news the infant's father had died as well.
From my understanding, they took the baby. Somebody else took the baby out from her. So no doubt he fell to the ground with her.
The suspected shooter was arrested blocks away from the scene without incident.
We are treating it as a domestic terrorism case, and we're going to do what we do to terrorists in this country, which is deliver swift and certain justice.
The mall is 5 miles from the border and often packed with residents of El Paso and nearby Juarez, Mexico. 6 Mexican nationals were killed. Mexico is now considering whether to bring charges. Law enforcement officials say the shooter is from Allen, Texas, a Dallas suburb 600 miles away. Meanwhile, back in El Paso, hundreds of people lined up in 100-degree weather to donate blood as the community comes together trying to begin to heal.
El Paso, we are telling the rest of the world that if you come into our community and try to scare us, we will not cower. If you try to come into our community and spread hate, we will respond with love.
And the FBI is concerned that these kind of high-profile shootings could actually inspire other extreme violent extremists, and they want your help. If you notice any suspicious activity, whether it be online or in person, to contact law enforcement. Janae and Kenneth, back to you.
All right, and Megan, you know, being in news, it seems like we're reporting on mass shootings more and more frequently. Some would say there appears to have been an increase lately.
I know, Janae, you are right, and unfortunately, that is correct. The FBI started tracking active shooter incidents in 2000, and then there were roughly 6 active shooter incidents a year. But in 2016, there were 20 a year, and then in 2017, 30 active shooting incidents in that year.
And,
yes, I'm sorry, go ahead.
And Megan, thank you so much for joining us. I know the FBI has said it is investigating 850 domestic terrorism cases, about the same number as active ISIS cases, related cases, and a significant number of those domestic terrorism cases involve racial and ethnic hatred. Those are staggering numbers to think about.
Staggering, and as we talk about the numbers, again, taking the lives of innocent people. We don't often enough talk about the people. We talk about the suspects, but we don't often enough talk about the people. And so I'm really proud that we've shared so many stories of the victims here this morning, and I hope that we continue to lift those people up and to talk about those who were taken too soon. And now to that shooting in Dayton, Ohio, where 9 people were killed and dozens were injured before police killed the shooter. His former classmates say he was once suspended from high school after allegedly making a hit list. But this morning, the motive for the shooting remains a mystery. The crowd of people at this candlelight vigil in Ohio showing their frustration with gun violence. Governor Mike DeWine was interrupted multiple times by chants of "do something" as hundreds gathered for the vigil in Dayton. Less than 24 hours earlier, a masked gunman wearing a bulletproof vest opened fire on a busy street. 9 people were killed, including 57-year-old Derek Fudge, Thomas Nichols, the father of 4 who's being remembered as a gentle giant, and Lois Oglesby, a nursing student who just gave birth to her 2nd child last month.
Very heartbreaking, very I never really experienced it, never really had to deal with someone that it hit so close to home. I just wish she would just wake up in a hospital.
The gunfire erupted early Sunday in Dayton's Oregon district, an area packed with restaurants and bars. The surveillance video shows people running for their lives and police shooting at the suspect.
I ain't gonna never get those sounds out of my head of just the gunshots and then the people screaming and the trampling and just the fear.
It sounded like
The shots rang out as Holly Redmond was walking into a bar, and after taking cover, she ran to a wounded man and performed CPR.
So I put my hands on his wound, and I couldn't get the blood to stop, so I had a tank top on, and I just pulled my tank top off, and I just sat there and I held the blood, and she would do the compressions, and I would lean over with my body weight on his thing and just breathe for him, and I knew he's still getting good air. And we kept doing it for a long time, and I felt really bad because we tried to save him, but he didn't make it.
The police chief says officers killed the alleged shooter within 30 seconds of the first shot. His 22-year-old sister is among the 9 victims. Police are investigating whether her killing was intentional. Police say the motive for the attack remains unclear. More than 24 other people injured or rushed to hospitals for treatment.
And the FBI has been tracking an increase in reported hate crimes involving suspects who identify as white supremacists. Officials say most domestic terrorism cases are motivated by some version of white supremacy. Experts say the dark corners of the internet are gathering places for these extremists. They say the online messaging board 8chan is one of those places. Its creator now says he thinks the messaging board should be shut down.
All right, and we're now hearing from some of the survivors this morning. Take a listen to what they had to say on Good Morning America.
Gentlemen, thank you for joining us this morning. And Jimmy, let me begin with you. You weren't even at the scene, but you're part of this group of parents. Your kids play t-ball together. You got that call. You ran toward the danger. Tell us what happened next.
Well, I arrived at the scene. The cops were just getting there. I parked my truck, run to the middle of the parking lot looking for the kids because the father told me, find my family, find my kids. And I find a group of kids. They were hiding behind a vehicle. They were low, and they saw me and they shouted out, "Coach, Coach!" And I pulled them out. It was 4 of them. Pulled them out, got them out of the scene, and then they kept asking for their parents. Please get my parents out there. My mom's been shot. My dad's been shot. And came back for the mom. Found the mom. We got her out of there too.
The shootings in Texas and Ohio have renewed calls for political action in Washington.
ABC's Mona Kosar-Abdi joins us now from Washington for a look at how this weekend changes the political landscape. Mona, good morning. So President Trump has offered condolences for the shootings. He says hate has no place in our country, but critics are pointing to the language used by the El Paso shooter, saying that it's similar to what President Trump has said about immigrants in the past.
And that's right, particularly Mexican immigrants and the country of Mexico. Now, the shooting has renewed backlash about the president's rhetoric, many pointing to the shooter's words, stating that, quote, this attack is in response to the Hispanic invasion of Texas, and that mirrored language that Trump used not too long ago during a rally. Now, the acting chief of staff, Mick Mulvaney, says that he also used the shooter's words, saying that the attack was not about the president. And he says that this is not the blame of any politician. Now, top Republicans also instead diverting blame onto the violent video game industry, but again saying that the president's words are not to blame here. 2020 candidates, Democrats, they have a different opinion. A lot of them directly pointing to the president and using some very strong language.
You mentioned those Democrats who are working to replace the president, and Democrats in Congress, they're also calling for action on gun control. So what are they saying, Mona, on Capitol Hill, and how have presidential candidates responded to the shootings? And I say that about the Democrats on Capitol Hill, but they're in recess right now, correct?
They are. So just on Thursday, senators left Washington to start their 5-week summer recess. Already, the House was on their 6-week summer recess. But now we have Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer, who's calling on Mitch McConnell to cut the break short so that they can come back and vote on gun control legislation, particularly a universal background check bill that has already passed the House. A lot of Democrats right now are just pressuring him on cutting this break short and taking action.
And Mona, we know he's also getting pressure not only from other lawmakers, but from many Americans. Last night on Twitter, the hashtag Massacre Mitch was one of the top trending topics.
It was #1.
Yeah,
at one
so
point.
lots of people speaking out, on social media also.
All right, well, Mona, they're trying to sort through the political landscape after these very, very horrible, tragic incidents. Mona, thank you again. And more to come. Stay with us. Welcome back. Recapping the pair of mass shootings shocking the nation this morning. Sources say a gunman in El Paso, Texas, told police he was trying to kill as many Mexicans as possible. The 21-year-old suspect, who could face domestic terrorism and hate crime charges, is accused of killing 20 people. And police are still trying to determine why a shooter in Dayton, Ohio, killed 9 people, including his own sister, before he was shot to death by officers.
Now we're going to go across the pond to Julia McFarlane in the London Bureau for an international perspective on what has really become an all too familiar tragedy here in this country. Julia, good morning. I mean, you're watching from a distance there, but here in America, we deal with this on a fairly regular basis.
Janae, you're absolutely right. But I will say it doesn't really feel like we're dealing with this story from, from a distance, because it was the main news story on domestic bulletins throughout the weekend. We were watching Sky News, the BBC, the online editions of the newspapers, all led very heavily with the US shootings, and actually trying to find some international headlines for ABC News Radio. Most of the foreign news stories circulating in the UK were about the shootings. I just want to read just a little bit of an excerpt written by Nikki Wolf, who's a Brit working in America, which I think really sums up how most Brits and how a lot of people across this side of the pond feel about these mass shootings as they happen in America. He says, writing about gun violence in America is starting to feel like being the vegetarian writer in residence at a slaughterhouse. This age will be defined by mass shooting drills, just as the Cold War was defined by atom bomb drills. It's just part of what America is now. Gun deaths seem factored into the discourse, acceptable losses. People are powerless and the carnage goes on. I have written this piece so many times since 2012. Too many times. There is little more left to say. Powerful words there from the New Statesman America by Nikki Wolf.
Very powerful there. We do have some international news to get to. Tensions between India and Pakistan are high this morning, we understand, Julia, as the Indian government is announcing the removal of Kashmir's special status, and thousands of troops are already deployed in that disputed region.
Exactly, Kenneth. This is quite a worrying and concerning development for Kashmiris. The area of Jammu and Kashmir, it's an Indian-administered part of Kashmir. It's got a sort of semi-autonomous status, which it has held for decades, because that area of Kashmir is disputed between India and Pakistan. They both have separate controlled enclaves of that territory. But the ruling BJP party in India, which is a very nationalist Hindu party, they announced that they were removing Kashmir's special status, the Indian side of Kashmir's special status, and this has attracted uproar from opposition parliamentarians in India. They've attacked it as unconstitutional. Thousands of troops, as you say, are deployed onto the streets of Kashmir. Kashmiris this morning have woken up to deserted streets. The schools are closed. Internet service has gone down, and tourists have been told to leave. A lot of Indians speaking to relatives inside Kashmir say that they are fearful about going outside, and they're just waiting to see what happens next. There is expected that there will be unrest in the wake of this announcement.
All right, and Julia, we would like to lighten things up just a little bit today. It's such a somber day here in the U.S., but over there and here, we'd like to wish a happy birthday to Duchess Meghan Markle. So tell us how the royal family is celebrating.
38 years young for Duchess Meghan. It was her birthday on Sunday, 4th of August. It's, of course, her first birthday as a mum. So she has a new member of the family to wish her happy birthday in his own little words, baby Archie, of course. There was an Instagram post from the Sussex Royal Instagram account, which was signed off by Harry. It read, wishing HRH, the Duchess of Sussex, a very happy birthday. And then the message from Harry read, happy birthday to my amazing wife. Thank you for joining me on this adventure. Love, H. The photo of Meghan is from their tour of Tonga, that tour of Commonwealth countries last November, looking radiant in that blue dress. And just underneath that post, the editor of British Vogue, Edward Enninful, who obviously worked with her on the September issue, he said, happy birthday, Meghan. Fun fact, guys, Duchess Meghan shares her birthday with another prominent American, I've just discovered.
We sure know that.
Oh, wait, my birthday was a couple of weeks ago. Oh, you mean former President Barack Obama? Yes.
They surely
in
do
good
share
company.
birthday, yeah.
They do share
and
a
of
birthday.
course, it was Mrs. Obama who Meghan interviewed in that edition of Vogue. Have you guys had a chance to have a look at that yet?
No, not yet. Not yet.
But it's on our to-do list as everything comes full circle.
We've got a copy in the newsroom.
Mail us. Mail
just out of reach.
Just out of reach. Here, like it's over there.
It is, Magnus. It's just there.
Yeah.
Guys, bear with me for 2 seconds because I just want to show it to you.
for this fetch? Could you fetch me this?
Yeah. No, here we go. So this is the front cover, and you can see that's the little shiny bit of the mirror that's meant to be where the reader sees themselves. And so,
I love that.
Here it is.
A mirror.
Fancy.
Yeah, so because it's 15 influential women that Meghan's chosen, plus she wants the reader to be inspired to take some change for herself.
Beautiful.
So it's a weighty issue. I don't know if you guys...
I'm going to see the mirror and I'm like, I'm an influential woman too.
That's right. That's right.
There's one in all of us, definitely. Hey, Julia, thank you so much.
100%.
We really appreciate it. So let's stay positive here and check our notifications.
And we're going to start with the Buffalo Bills. Doing a little boogie.
The Buffalo Bills shuffle? Or the Buffalo Boogie? I see there. Okay.
Showing off some dance moves.
Let's see how they're dancing when the season kicks off.
Yep.
All right, next to the Akron Zoo in Ohio, which has a new baby snow leopard, and they came up with a creative way to let it choose its own name. You see, like he went right to, is that?
Bayou.
Bayou there.
Bayou.
So they put out several little names, options, and
maybe Mama liked Bayou too.
Yeah. So Bayou is the new name for that baby leopard.
Check out this guy who timed a selfie just right as an orca breached right behind him.
That was happening apparently in Southern California.
Yeah.
Right at the time they were on this fishing or this whale watching trip. They were on a trip out in the water. And the two orcas said, we want to get on the gram as well.
You said Free Willy style. Free Willy style. Finally, some serious talent out there if you know where to look. This young man in New Orleans, soda cans on the bottom of his shoes, so they become tap shoes.
Yeah.
Quite impressive.
Really, that's some talent right there.
Yeah.
All right, speaking of hidden talents, how's this for a humble beginning? A baseball fan showing off his skill at a stadium speed pitch cage ends up landing a minor league contract.
It's a story that sounds like it was pitched straight out of Hollywood. Here's ABC's Maggie Rulli.
He's a real-life Rookie of the Year. Or a Jim Morris from The Rookie. Nathan Patterson goes from a regular 23-year-old dude with a dream to a professional baseball player. After stepping into a speed pitch radar booth set up for fans at a July Rockies game, Patterson threw some serious heat, an impressive 96 miles per hour. His brother posted the video online, and it blew up. The Oakland A's were calling him with the deal just a few days later.
The percentage of prospects who do something like what Nate Patterson did, who can make it to the major leagues, the odds are so stacked against you to do that. The reason that this story is so interesting is because it doesn't happen very often, if at all.
Patterson hadn't played since high school, but stepped back on the diamond last August. Then, in the middle of his training, he almost lost it all after a car accident. Patterson dedicated himself to physical therapy, joining a rec league to stay in shape, working to be ready for this moment. On Instagram, Patterson calls the journey a roller coaster and thanks his family for always supporting him in his dream. Maggie Rulli, ABC News, New York.
Well, coming up, how one museum is highlighting black art in America.
We'll have the story right after this. Here's what to watch out for today. President Trump is scheduled to make a statement on the mass shootings in El Paso and Dayton at 10 a.m. Eastern. Tune in for full coverage right here on ABC News Live.
Customs and Border Patrol and the U.S. Coast Guard will hold a joint event celebrating the 230th anniversary of the U.S. Customs Service, marking the first foreign vessel to be processed in the U.S. at the port of New York. And a gathering in the Japanese Consulate General in New York is set to mark the 74th anniversary of the atomic bombs dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki, Japan.
Plus, don't forget to tune into The Debrief for an update on all our top stories, and the briefing room for a breakdown of the latest headlines in politics.
We do have some uplifting news today. The year was 1968. Music artists like Marvin Gaye, Tammy Terrell, Aretha Franklin, Smokey Robinson were heating up the R&B charts.
But in Manhattan's predominantly black Harlem neighborhood, a very different group of artists was getting together to create a very special museum celebrating and promoting black art in America.
Today is a particularly exciting day because it is the opening day of the Studio Museum in Harlem exhibition for our artists in residence. This is a partnership across two incredible institutions, the Studio Museum in Harlem and MoMA PS1. This is part of a larger partnership which has these two institutions collaborating during monumental parts of their own institutional history. In the Studio Museum's case, we are in the process of building a new building.
I think most people knew that the Studio Museum was going to be closed for a number of years. And because it plays such a crucial role in the artist community, and certainly in the African American artist community, I think those of us around town with other institutions all felt a real responsibility to help out in any way that we could.
Since its founding in 1968, the Studio Museum in Harlem has been devoted to rethinking, reimagining, and in many ways through the exhibitions, our programs, rewriting the canon of art history. The decision to work with the Museum of Modern Art and MoMA PS1 happened very organically. We are working all around the city with many different museums and arts organizations.
I was excited about it. It was an opportunity to work with two institutions at once, and then one as prestigious as MoMA. I'm from Hamilton Heights. It's a neighborhood in Harlem, and I've lived there my entire life. Over maybe the past 2 decades, I've seen the neighborhood change a lot. I don't know if it will be the same in the future. A lot of these houses have been recently renovated and stuff, but these houses have been here for like decades. The Studio Museum is very important because it's one of the hallmark cultural institutions within Harlem. And I think to have like a really beautiful, really flourishing community, the cultural centers are really at the center of that. When I think about Harlem and the cultural centers that exist, I think about the Studio Museum. The body of work that I created for the Studio Museum show is as much about my memories of Harlem as it is about Harlem as it is in the present moment. All those images were inspired by just being an individual walking down the streets of Harlem and different people that I saw, different people within my community. I think art can be a universal language if people are willing to participate in it. Art is dependent on its audience.
At the Studio Museum, we welcome the opportunity to bring this year's exhibition to a new audience. Now, in some ways, our audience in Harlem had always been diverse. People came from all over the city, the country, and even the world to see the work of artists of African descent.
It's an exciting opportunity to think about what these next steps mean for our institution, ways that we can engage new audiences and new publics, and be thinking critically about what the future of the institution should look like.
We look forward to the moment that we open the doors on the new Studio Museum in Harlem. In the new building, what we hope is that we will continue to present artists of African descent, to show our collection, to have our residency program, but we also hope that in that new building we'll begin again to think about how art and culture can be an important part of the community, of the city, and of the world.
Just a big thanks to our producers, Gentrix Ashenga and Michael Bickle, for bringing us that very incredible and uplifting story that we needed to hear this morning.
Absolutely. And so it is a very tough way to start the week. Really hard news the last couple of days. We haven't gotten to our question of the day, so that's what we're going to do now. And we want to know, after days like this, in the face of news like this, tragedies around the country, what do you do to
lift
to
those
smile?
spirits.
Yeah.
To
what
smile.
do you do to feel better? Tell us down in the comments. Tweet us at ABC News Live. Kenneth, I mean, can you think of what you do?
I spent time over the weekend with my family, and it puts it in perspective about what's important, what matters. And thankfully, I had them over this weekend. My family from South Carolina, my mom and my little sister, people I only see a few times out of the year. And we woke up to not one, but 2 mass shootings in this country on Sunday morning. And so hugged them a little tighter. My sister, who's older now, I mean, she doesn't like me kissing on her, but she lets the big brother do it. And that helps me. It does.
Yeah. Nope, and it's the
And for
same
you?
thing for me. Same thing. I've got the little guy at home as well as my husband. We spent all weekend together, and after hearing these stories, hearing about the families, I mean, especially the mom who shielded her young baby in the face of all of that danger, all you can do is really hug on your family. So let us know what you do. That is it for us today. Hopefully we've got a little bit better news tomorrow.
Have a good one. We'll see you.